Hey everyone, welcome. Today, we're diving into what is, honestly, one of the most powerful chapters in the Bible, Luke chapter 12. Using a great study guide from the You Need Faith in Jesus team, we're going to unpack Jesus' really radical teachings on what should matter most in our lives.
All right, let's just jump right in with a big question for you. What are you really worried about? I mean, deep down. Is it your job, your bills, what other people think about you? We all have things that keep us up at night.
You know, it's so interesting because in this chapter, Jesus basically says that our biggest problems, they're not always what we think they are. He takes these universal human struggles like fear and anxiety, and he just flips them on their head, inviting us to see our lives from a totally different perspective, an eternal one. So the first thing Jesus goes after is this huge pressure we all feel to look perfect on the outside. He gives a really serious warning against something he calls hypocrisy.
And the way Jesus describes hypocrisy is just brilliant. He calls it the leaven of the Pharisees. Now, think about that for a second. Leaven, yeast, it's this tiny little thing, but it secretly works its way through the entire batch of dough, puffing it all up. In the same way, just pretending to be righteous on the outside can secretly corrupt your whole life. And Jesus warns that one day, all those secrets will be brought into the light.
So this whole idea of being afraid of our secrets getting out, it naturally leads Jesus to a much, much deeper question. Who or what should you really be afraid of? He's about to completely redefine fear for his followers.
And what he does here is draw this incredibly stark line in the sand. On one side, you've got the fear of other people. But what can they really do? Harm your body? That's temporary. But on the other side, there's the fear of God. Now, this isn't about cowering in terror. It's about a deep, profound, holy respect for the one who holds your eternal destiny in his hands. The stakes just couldn't be any higher.
But then, right after this incredibly serious warning, Jesus does something amazing. He brings it right back to this incredibly tender, personal level. He says, "Fear not, therefore ye are of more value than many sparrows." Get this, the same God who deserves our ultimate respect is also a Father who cares so intimately for you that he knows every sparrow that falls. See, when you realize how much God cares for you, it completely flips the script on where we look for security. And that brings us to the next big trap Jesus warns us about, the trap of always needing more. He hits this idea head-on with one of his most powerful stories, the parable of the rich fool.
So the story goes like this. There's a rich man, and he has this huge, successful harvest. And listen to his plan. It's all about I and my. He says, I will pull down my barns, and I will say to my soul, take it easy, eat, drink, be merry. His whole world revolves around himself and his stuff.
But just as he's mapping out his life of ease, boom, the whole narrative shifts. God steps in and says to him, "Thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee." I mean, talk about a reality check. In the middle of all his planning for the future, his time was up.
And God leaves him, and all of us really, with this absolutely devastating question. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? The man spent his entire life building a kingdom he couldn't take with him. He was rich by the world's standards, but totally bankrupt in the things that actually matter.
Okay, so if things like hypocrisy, the wrong kind of fear, and greed, if they're all just symptoms of valuing temporary stuff over eternal stuff, then what's the cure? Well, this is where Jesus pivots from the warnings to the solution, a radical, complete trust in the Father's provision.
He tells us to just look outside, look at nature. He says, consider the ravens. They don't plant seeds, they don't harvest crops, and yet God feeds them. And his point is so simple, but so profound. If God takes care of the birds, how much more does he value you?
And he doesn't stop there. He says, okay, now consider the lilies. They don't work or spin thread, yet Jesus says not even King Solomon in all his wealth and glory was dressed as beautifully as one of these flowers. It really makes you wonder, why do we exhaust ourselves worrying about things God handles so effortlessly?
And this all builds to the foundational principle. This is the antidote to all that anxiety. Jesus says, but rather seek ye the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. It's both a command and a promise. Put first things first, focus on what truly lasts, and God will handle the rest. So this idea of seeking God's kingdom, it's not just about having a less stressful week. It builds to the ultimate why behind everything Jesus is teaching here. It's about living your entire life with a sense of eternal readiness. Jesus paints this picture of servants who are always ready. He says to have your loins girded, which basically means you're dressed and ready to move, ready for action. Your lights are burning. Why? Because the master is coming back, and it's going to be at an hour you don't expect. And that's the posture we're supposed to have in our lives.
And then there's this one verse that just ties it all together beautifully. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. It's so simple, right? Whatever you value most, whether it's what people think or your bank account or the kingdom of God, that's what will drive your entire life. It directs everything.
So what does it actually look like to be rich toward God? Well, the study guide we're using breaks it down into 3 really practical steps. Step 1, reevaluate what you're afraid of. Look at it through an eternal lens. Step 2, reprioritize your treasure. Shift your focus from earthly stuff to heavenly things. And finally, step 3, reorient your whole life around being a watchful, ready servant.
And that really leaves us with a final, very personal, and pretty challenging question to think about. It brings that parable right into our lives today. If this were your last night on earth, what would the things you've treasured up say about where your heart really is?
Now, if you want to dig deeper into these incredible lessons, the guide from the You Need Faith in Jesus team has some great next steps for you. You can use the flashcards to really lock in these key ideas, and then take the quiz to check your understanding. When you pass that quiz, you'll have this lesson marked as complete.